Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Teres Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisborach. As always, we begin with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for its magnificent platform of Abatzis Torah worldwide. And we also thank Kol HaLashon for its global, pure network throughout the world. We welcome our YouTube viewers, our listeners on Torah Communications Network, our Zoomers, our subscribers, our people here at our flagship station at the Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood. Since last week's share, the world has really turned upside down with the entire Eretz Yisrael living in constant 24/7 tension of missiles, murderous, merciless missiles raining down upon them. Men, women, elderly, children, pregnant women, women and men with walkers, and worse, having to go to the miklat at a moment's notice. And therefore, it's a beautiful thing that my Talmud Beirich Goldwasser is sponsoring this week's share, that our learning should be for the schus of Acheinu Beis Yisrael, and that the brave IDF soldiers and the USA military should be Shlucha d'Rachmana to bring Nitzachon to Yisrael and protection to Jews the world over. So we know that the parsha starts off that Hashem says to Moshe, Shlach l'cha anoshim, and Rashi adds, L'datcha. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu that according to your thoughts, send people to spy out the land. So the Yalkut Shmoni says that Klal Yisrael came to Moshe Rabbeinu with a convincing request. And I'll tell you the lashon of the Medrash. Amar Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, Nishlacha Anoshim Lefaneinu. Let's send out people ahead of us. Amar Lahem Lama. Moshe said, why? Hashem said we're going to conquer the land. Why do we have to send out anybody? Amru Lai. So they said, Shekfar Yiftachnu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem already promised us, Shanu Nichnasim L'Eretz Canaan, that we're going to enter into Eretz Canaan, and we're going to inherit Kol Tov. And we're going to inherit all of their treasures. Now, they heard that we're coming. If they hide their money because they know we're coming, so they secret it away, we will enter and we won't find it. So therefore, let us go ahead, because otherwise, Hashem's promise won't be upheld. It'll be a chilul Hashem. Let spies go beforehand, and let them and let them dig, and they'll find they'll let us know where they're keeping their money, so that when we go in, we'll find the money and the word of Hashem will be fulfilled. So the Yalkut Shemaini says that the Bakashas Meraglim was L'Shem Shemayim. They wanted to be Mekayim D'Aftacha of Hashem. Now, you know, it almost sounds that they were following in the same way as when they left Mitzrayim, Hashem said, go and take loans. So this way you know where their money is. Otherwise they're going to try to hide their money. So go and take loans, so you'll know where the money is. And during the Mak of Choshech, he first had them go into the houses and look for where the money is, right? Remember, when they couldn't move, they could have slit their throats. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, don't touch the Egyptians. That's not your job. Don't touch your tormentors. It was a big emunah that Klal Yisrael listened. They didn't touch the Egyptians. Imagine that the Hamas was, or the Germans, the Nazis, for 3 days, they couldn't move. And we were told, go in and look for where the valuables are, but don't do anything to your tormentors. Don't do anything to the people that gassed your relatives. So here, they buried our children in Pitam and Ramses. They threw them in the water. They slit their necks for Paro's bloodbaths. And they were told, don't touch the Egyptians. Just look where the money is, so that later, when you want to take a loan and they say, we don't have that, you'll say, yes, you do. We saw it when we went into the house during the plague of darkness. We saw it amongst the sacks. We saw it under the mattress. She already saw that they had this idea that there is something to look where the money is, so that later on we'll be able to fulfill the promise of Achrei Kain Yetzim Ruchosh Gadol. So the Yalkut Shemaini said they went with the same claim to Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's go, because since Hashem says we're going to come into Eretz Yisrael and we're going to inherit all their wealth, but they're going to hide the wealth, knowing that we're coming. So let's send spies to look for where it is. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu sent the spies. From this Yalkut Shemaini, we learn an unbelievable principle about the Yetzer Hara. And that is, the Yetzer Hara tries to get us through mitzvahs. See, when you're talking about people of stature, the Yetzer Hara can't say sin. He's never going to get anywhere. You know, somebody says, go out and punch somebody in the nose. Jews don't punch people in the nose. It's not going to work. The Yetzer Hara is only going to succeed if it comes masquerading as a mitzvah. I have to tell you that this is a befeirish gain, the Gra, Vilna Gain, Zech Tzadik Levrachas Chusi Yagam Aleinu, says this in Mishlei. I'll quote his words. Kol inyonei pituya Yetzer Hara, all of the seductive tricks of the evil inclination, hein bedaber sheyesh toiv v'ra. It's only in something that's mixed with good and evil. Ki b'ra'in yochel liftaisu. He can't get people with ra. We're talking about good people. That's what it says in Bereshis when Yaakov fought with the Malach. So it says, "Vaye'ovek ish imai." The man wrestled with him, and we know that ish was Samuel, Samkel, the poison of God. That's the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMaves. So the Medrash says, how did this ish appear? So there's one opinion that it appeared as a Talmud Chacham. The Yetzer Hara comes always in a disguise. I'll give you an example. That people say, we don't want a poor man to come into shul because he's going to bother our davening. Let him stay outside the shul because he's going to come in and he's going to interrupt our davening. Now, that's not coming from the Yetzer Tov. Because the same person that doesn't want the ani to come into the shul doesn't close his cell phone. He doesn't keep his cell phone out of the shul. But he doesn't want the ani in the shul. That's coming from the Yetzer Hara. But the Yetzer Hara, like the Gra says, he can't say, don't give tzedakah. So he says, no, don't have the ani come in because it's going to bother my davening. It's a very, very sinister thing. Or I'll give you another example. Here's a person that's talking during davening. Oh, yeah, person talking during davening. So the Yetzer Hara gets him to speak Lashon Hara about that person. Oh, we got to do something about this person. So again, the Yetzer Hara cloaks it in a mitzvah, in righteous indignation. Righteous indignation. We got to do something. And even, I've seen this, he even creates machloikis in the shul over a person talking. Now machloikis is chelik mavos, it's a portion of death. So the Yetzer Hara says, how could I introduce machloikis? Just to introduce machloikis tamazai, people are smart enough, they know that you shouldn't be kadas kairach. So you know what I'll do? I'll get involved with talking in shul. So talking in shul, it's a mitzvah. Es mikdashi tiro. So then I'll be able to introduce machloikis. I know that there are even foolish people that they go into areas by the beach where women are in bikinis, men, and they go there to be mekarev rechokim. Yetzer Hara gets them to go against nashim that are almost naked to be mekarev rechokim. He wouldn't be able to do it stamazai, tell a person to go amongst naked women. But it's for kirav rechokim. So the Yetzer Hara comes in the levush of a mitzvah. You have to know that in the morning, in our tefillah, we say in the Hi Ratzon that we say after Hamav Shena Me'enai Usnuma Me'afapai, we make a double request, and it sounds very unusual. We ask Hashem Va'al Tashlit Banu Yetzer Hara, which is a nice tefillah. We ask Hashem that the Yetzer Hara shouldn't rule over us. You know, that when a very scantily clad female passes by us, the Yetzer Hara shouldn't get us to steer. He shouldn't overpower us. That's al tashit b'nu Yetzer Hara. But then we say, v'chayfes yitzreinu l'ishtabed lach. Subdue our Yetzer to be subjugated to you. Isn't that a repetition? We already said ba'al tashit b'nu Yetzer Hara. Why do we say again, v'chayfes yitzreinu l'ishtabed lach? What's going on? So Rav Twersky says a Moridik Pshat. He says, we ask Hashem, first of all, let not the Yetzer Hara control us. But the second thing is, we say, Hashem, you know, the Yetzer Hara has permission to tempt us to sin. But he doesn't have the permission to tell us that a sin is a mitzvah. So that's what we ask. V'chayfes yitzreinu l'ishtabed lach. Subdue the Yetzer Hara to be subjugated to you. that he should only do his job. He could tempt me to sin, but not that he should tell me that it's a mitzvah. Please, Hashem, help me that he shouldn't convince me that a sin is a mitzvah. That's what we're talking about over here. There's a Gemara in Brachas. The Gemara in Brachas says that the Yetzer Hara is daimel zvuv. That the Yetzer Hara is similar to a fly. It's a Gemara in Brachas, Samach Aleph Amud Aleph. Now that's a very, very strange thing. The Gemara in Bava Basra says that the Yetzer Hara wears 3 hats. Hu ha-Yetzer Hara, hu ha-Satan, hu ha-Malach ha-Mavos. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is also the prosecutor, and he's also the executioner. That doesn't sound like a fly. That sounds like a scorpion. That sounds like a rattlesnake. That sounds like a tarantula. Why is it compared to a fly? This is a question that many of the commentators grapple with. One answer is because a fly has a certain characteristic that's very similar to the Yetzer Hara, and that is it's persistent. If you've ever had a Shabbos afternoon when you went to sleep and there's a fly in the room and it buzzes by you, you push it away, it buzzes by you again. You push it away, it buzzes by you again. You have to know that's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara never gives up. That's a yesod. It says, Yitzrei shel Adam miskaber alav b'chol yom. Person's Yetzer prevails every day. That's why we have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Al tamen ba'atzmecha ad yom ha'ischa. Don't trust yourself until the day of death. Because the Yetzer Hara constantly comes back. Now, that's why it says that Kol HaGadol me'chaveira Yitzrei Gadol Eimenu. Whoever is greater has a bigger Yetzer Hara. Because what happens is, here's a person who he was opening up the siddur and just spacing out. So he worked on it that he shouldn't space out. So once the Yetzer Hara sees that he is concentrating, and he got used to concentrating, now the Yetzer Hara challenges him that his body isn't clean. And he has to take care to make sure that when he comes out of the bathroom, his body is clean. Because if he davens and he's not clean, that's not a good davening. So he works on that. Then the Yetzer Hara makes him tired, that he shouldn't make minyan. Then he overcomes that. There's always challenges. That's life. That's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara bzz, 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 keeps on coming back. There's another thing, and that is that flies are found by sweets. Where do you find flies? If you leave out sweets, try to leave out an open lollipop, and it's covered with flies. Flies are found by sweets. We have to know that the Yetzer Hara is found by the taivas of life, by the sweets of life. That's where you have to watch out. You have to watch out not to get addicted. You have to watch out not to get overboard. Flies are also found by decay, by ipush, by dirt, by waste. And flies are found in places, that's why the Yetzer Hara is found in places where there is sin. You have to know that if you're going to sit in the back of the shul where people generally congregate to talk, you're going to end up talking. You have to know if you go and sit under an umbrella table or in an area with a swimming pool where they talk about people, the Yetzer Hara is there. Lepesach chatas roivetz. By the door of sin it crouches. Now I'm going to tell you something else. The Yetzer Hara is a master of disguises. He very often does not look threatening. Just like a fly, we know now that many people got sick because the fly carried diseases. It carried plagues. But the Yetzer Hara doesn't look threatening. You know, this friend is such a fun friend. Unfortunately, fun doesn't mean safe. But doesn't look threatening. A lot of times the Yetzer Hara doesn't look threatening, but there's a reason why you might wonder, Rabbi, why seem to veer off the topic? I didn't. I just wanted to elaborate. The Gemara in Brachos tells us that the Yetzer Hara sits bein beis miftachei halev. The Yetzer Hara sits between the two compartments of the heart, meaning there's a good inclination and an evil inclination. The Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Tov only tells us to do good. The Gaon says the Yetzer Hara doesn't just tell us to do bad. As the Gaon says, he won't succeed that way. He won't succeed that way. So he sits and he gives us a cholent. He gives us a mixture. He gives us some good and some bad that we don't know. We can't tell. So the Gaon says an interesting thing. The Gaon says, if you're not sure if something is coming from the good inclination or the evil inclination, what's the way that you could tell? Is there a way that you could diagnose it? He says something fascinating. He says, see if you're really rushed to do it. He says, if you're really rushed to do it, it's not coming from the Yetzer Tov. Yetzer Tov doesn't push. The Yetzer Tov doesn't push. The Yetzer Hara pushes. It's such a fascinating thing. You know, I saw this in my career as a Rav in the Agudas Yisrael of Staten Island. Many times we had a general membership meeting to do things for the shul. You really can't make any decisions according to the Constitution unless you have a quorum, unless you have a certain amount of the membership there. And I remember that many times, people have other responsibilities, and many times we couldn't get a quorum. But I remember that if there was any shemetz, any hint of a machlokes, the room was packed. If you sold popcorn, you'd make a lot of money. Why is that? Because then the Yetzer Hara brought the people. Yetzer Tov don't bring people. Yetzer Tov doesn't push people. But if there's a possibility of machlokes, whoa, the Yetzer Hara is pushing people, and it's a packed room. That's the way. They say over a very scary story from Reb Chaim Volozhin. He says, in Volozhin, somebody came and collected tzedakah. And he gave a convincing presentation, and many people gave him a nice nedava. The only person that didn't give him anything was Reb Chaim Volozhin. A few days later, they found out that the guy was a phony. So they went over to Reb Chaim Volozhin and said, it's a riot that the Rosh Hashiva, the Rav, has Ruach HaKodesh. So he started laughing. He says, I don't have Ruach HaKodesh. He said, well, then why didn't you give him tzedakah? He said, I have to tell you that I felt inside me a unusual feeling to give him. And I said, I didn't understand. Why did I have such an excitement to give him? And I said, it must be coming from the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Tov doesn't push to do it. The Yetzer Hara should be stopping me from doing it. Should be telling me I need to use this money for something else. I can't give so much money. And the Yetzer Hara wasn't working on me. To the contrary, I felt excited to give. He says, that was very unusual. I said, it must be that the Yetzer Hara is telling me to give. And that's why I didn't give. It's interesting that Rav Twersky says this idea, Mamish, I mentioned this when we were learning Bereshis. Rav Twersky says is a medrash. It says that Vayara likim es kol asher asa, Hashem saw everything that He made. V'hinei toiv ma'od. It was very good. So the Medrash says, toiv zu yetzer toiv, ma'od zu yetzer hara. Toiv is the yetzer toiv, ma'od very is the yetzer hara. So the question is, what do you mean? The yetzer hara is better than the yetzer toiv? What's very good about the yetzer hara that gets us to sin, that gets people to die? So says Rav Twersky, if something is ma'od, if something is too, T-O-O, if something is very, then be suspicious it's coming from the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Tov doesn't push us to do things. To the contrary, the Yetzer Hara is always there telling us, don't get up. Don't do this. Don't go to the Daf Yomi. Don't. So, the Mefarshim say that this is mamish what we find over here. Mamish what we find over here by the Meraglim. Because in Devarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu records how they came to him initially, it says, Vatikra v'neilai kulchem, you came to me, v'tamarna nishlacha anoshim l'faneinu v'yachber lanu es haaretz. Send out spies to spy the land. Rashi says an incredible thing. You came be'irbuvya. It was a mishkababel. It was like a mob. Yolodim doichvim es zekanim. The youth were pushing the elderly. Or zekanim doichvim es haroshim. And the elderly were pushing the heads. What's all the pushing? What's all the excitement? What's all the pushing to go and spy the land? You should have seen right away from there that that's coming from the Yetzer Hara. When there's so much pushing, so much excitement, that's coming from the Yetzer Hara. I want to point out also that even what the Yalkut Shimoni says, that they were afraid that the Canaanites would hide the wealth and they would not find anything and it would be a Chilul Hashem. You know, we were 3 million people. What's it going to help to send out 12 spies who are going to be under the enemy radar? They're going to be able to dig to find the treasure. When we go in, we'll dig and we'll find the treasure. We'll be 3 million people. I mean, the whole claim doesn't even make sense, which, by the way, that's the way it is with the Yetzer Hara. A lot of times, Yetzer Hara simply, if upon a little bit more analysis, it doesn't make sense. If a person stops to say, why am I vaping? Why am I vaping? We don't know yet how dangerous the vaping is. Many doctors say it's more dangerous even than the smoking. It doesn't hold up. Now, there is another element over here to what Rashi says in Devarim. And that is, Moshe Rabbeinu should have been alerted by the fact that when they came, the youth were pushing the elderly, and the elderly were pushing the heads. The lack of derech eretz demonstrated the lack of kavod, demonstrated by those that made the request, should have been a signal to Moshe Rabbeinu that it's not coming from a good place. We have to know that kavod, giving the proper honor, is one of the bedrocks of Yiddishkeit. We just had it in the Mishnah Yomis in Pirkei Avos, where it said, "Yehei kvod talmidcha chaviv alecha kishalach." Honor your Talmud as yourself. Now we're very makbid on our own cup. And it says, even your Talmud is a mensch because of you. Still honor him like yourself. Chavercha, you should honor like your Rebbe. And your Rebbe should be Kameir Shemayim. We are very makbid on kavod. The fact that the principles that asked for this mission were not demonstrating kavod should have been already a red alert. Kavod, we know we have the longest period of Avelis in the Jewish calendar is because the Talmidei Rebbe Kiva didn't give kavod one to another, and they suffered the worst of the over 900 deaths. They all died from Askra, and the Torah didn't protect them. It's interesting. Shlach l'cha noshim. So there's a famous Moshe Zakein Bali Tosfos that says, just like it says by Avram, Lech lecha, go for yourself. Right? It says Lech lecha, but Lech lecha, go for yourself. The gematria of Lech lecha is 100, right? Lamed chaf, 50 is 100. Go for yourself. You're going to get a benefit when you're 100. When you go on this mission, you're going to have a child. Here, you're not going to have a child. Shlach lecha anoshim. You should know, Moshe Rabbeinu, that this mission will be good for you. That's what the Moshe Zakein say. Although it was a tragedy for Klal Yisrael, a whole generation would die in the desert. A whole generation would die. 40 years. A whole generation would die and not enter into Eretz Yisrael. It was a tragedy for Klal Yisrael. But Shlach lecha, for you it will be good. Why? Because if Klal Yisrael would have gone in right away, Moshe Rabbeinu would have to die. Because remember, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Lama hariyoisem lama hazeh. Why are you doing bad to these people? Lama zeh shlachtani. And at that point, Hashem said to him, you'll see me taking them out of Egypt, but the conquering of the 31 kings of Canaan, you won't see. If they would have gone in right away, Moshe Rabbeinu would have had to die. The fact that they wandered in the desert 40 years, that gave Moshe Rabbeinu another 40 years of life. So Shlach lecha, this mission is going to be good for you. That's what the Bali Tosfos say. But it begs the question, what exactly does this mean? I mean, it was a tragedy for Gans Klal Yisrael. What's the Rebbeinu Shalom pointing out? You see, Moshe Rabbeinu was motivated by good. Moshe Rabbeinu meant that there should be a Kiddush Hashem. He was motivated by good. Sending out the spies. He was motivated by good thoughts. And we have a rule, midvar toiv lo teitzei ra. From something good never comes bad. That's a rule. From a davar toiv lo teitzei ra. So therefore, the Baalei Tosfos say you're right. For Moshe Rabbeinu, it didn't come out bad. For Moshe Rabbeinu, it came out good. He lived an extra 40 years because of it. There's a awesome story about B'davar Toiv Lo Teitzei Ra that the Oitzes Pnini HaTorah brings down. I wanted to share it with you. The great Rav Mordechai Zuckerman went to a Hachnasa Sefer Torah where they were writing the last letters of a Sefer Torah together with another big Rav of Yerushalayim. And at the Hachnasa Sefer Torah, when this Rav sat down to write one of the last letters, his elbow accidentally knocked a bottle of wine, and the bottle of wine spilled all over the last urea, the last parchment of the Sefer Torah, and ruined the parchment. And here they all gathered to celebrate the finishing of the Torah, and the parchment got ruined. It was mamish spoiled the entire evening. So this was a very, very big Rav, and he was very embarrassed, and he was mortified, and of course he couldn't stop apologizing. And the host, it was one of the big Rabbanim Yerushalayim, he said, it's okay, it'll be another day. But as he was going out, he walked out with the Rameh Zuckerman, and he said to Rav Zuckerman, I can't believe that happened. I'm so fashemed. So Rav Zuckerman looked at him with shalva, with complete equanimity, and he said to him, Midavar toiv lo teitzei ra. You meant to do good. You meant to write a letter in Sefer Torah, do a mitzvah of Kesiva Sefer Torah. You'll see yet that it wasn't bad. The Rav, who was completely mortified, had no idea how that could be. But of course they got the Sefer to quickly write the last part of the Sefer Torah again. And a few days later, they had the Suda and the big Hachnasa Sefer Torah. And at the Suda, different people spoke. And there was a very wealthy man who came from America who participated because the one that was giving the Sefer Torah was a business partner of his. And he got up to speak, and he said, I suffered through the Holocaust, and I saw the death of my family. He says, I don't believe in Hashem anymore. But I came in honor of my pious partner, and I even wrote a letter in the Sefer a few days ago. And when this Rav heard it, it hit him like a light bulb, that this person was a kaifer of Hashem, and he was puzzled to write a Sefer Torah.